back at WW25 when Apple unveiled the new OS 26 liquid glass design scheme. Honestly, I feel like most of everyone, including me, was left disappointed. The new redesign, in my opinion, really did not live up to the expectation of the redesign that we have from going from iOS 6 to 7. Yes, the design looked good, it looked cool, but when they first showed that home screen, honestly, it looked extremely similar. So 5 months later, no one's really talking about the design aspect or all of the aspects of iOS 26 anymore. We're just talking about the new Siri coming later this year and all that stuff. But the question is 5 months later, is iOS 26 good? I mean, we've heard things about the install rate being low. So 5 months later, after I've been daily driving iOS 26 on all my devices, is the design good? Is it not practical? Is it buggy? Is it good? Do I wish I didn't switch to 26 or upgrade to 26? Well, that's what we are gonna find out. Welcome to my 5 months later iOS 26 review. Alright, so after 5 months, I want to break down the key points of iOS 26 into 3 major key points. And that is design, functionality, and reliability. And let's just start off with design, which is probably the thing about iOS 26. When it first came out, the new liquid glass design was the thing. It was what everyone was talking about. And like I mentioned earlier, back when they revealed it and first showed that home screen, I was disappointed. But now that I actually have it on my devices and have been using it for the past 5 months, actually over 5 months since I was beta testing it back when it came out in June, honestly, I have fallen in love with this new design. First of all, I do really like liquid glass. I think it brings some spiciness, some flair to the design of the OS. I think it just looks beautiful, the refractingness, and overall, I genuinely do love this liquid glass. In fact, I wish they actually increased it, like, just crank that stuff up, crank that refraction up, slap it on as much of the OS as you can. I do really love it. Now, when you first boot up your home screen on your newly iOS 26 freshened phone, you're probably not going to notice much. The app icons have been refined, there's depth and some shadows, and the camera app looks totally different in a bad way. But what I found is that when you actually start using the phone, it's going to be really familiar. But there is no way you're not going to tell that the design has changed. Now, do I still wish there was more of a design change with iOS 26? Yes. But then again, I do think they hit the right balance of familiarity and newness. I think if it was too much, if they put any more, too many people wouldn't be able to understand it. So overall, I do think that the balance of the newness is actually really good. Because when you start going into different menus and different apps, you will notice that things have been really changed. Like, for instance, instead of having a little bar at the bottom of your phone with some icons, now it's this floating glass bubble with these different icons, and they morph when you touch them. And in fact, in the first versions of 26, glass didn't really morph, but with the recent 26.2 update, they actually do morph now, and honestly, I love it. Like, bring it on, Apple. I love that. And I have to say, the new design choices they've made were actually really intuitive. One thing I've noticed is that a lot of the buttons and functions that were previously at the top of the screen have been bubbled down literally to the bottom of the screen, which in my opinion makes it more intuitive to reach and better for one-handed use. And overall, I feel like everything is just more rounded and honestly just much more modern. Going back and looking at iOS 18, I can definitely say without a doubt that everything is at least refined, but most of everything is redesigned, and it does look a lot more modern in 2026. And overall, I feel like all throughout the OS, I feel like the way it's been redesigned is where the UI kind of gets out of the way for your content. Like in Safari, when you're scrolling, you just have this little thing at the bottom with this little glass bubble, and then it kind of bubbles up with your little controls, which is still more compact. Or in photos, you just have those little things with the little liquid glass things. And I feel like that is a trend kind of throughout the OS where the UI kind of conforms around your content, which I do really like. And I also really like that when I get a notification, is glass. I can literally see my content through that notification. If I'm watching a YouTube video, I can see my content through that notification. And everything is just bubbly, and honestly, it just makes the OS feel lively with the bubbleness and all the other things. And honestly, my only real complaint with the design is the camera app. Let me tell you, I hated that new camera app from the start. Now, in the rumors, it actually looked really good, but the final version is awful, let me tell you. First of all, they placed like all of the little quick actions at the top, and yes, I did discover you can just click a little button at the bottom to bring up this cool glassy menu, but no, it's just not intuitive. Also, the camera app looks so unpolished. Like the way that there's just this big black blob at the bottom. The old camera app felt so much more polished, so much more Apple. The new one, no. Like I just don't like it. I mean, I've got used to it to where it's not a big deal, but still, I don't like it. And I feel like they didn't do a good job of implementing the little slider at the bottom. I just don't like it. I mean, that's honestly my only complaint with the design of iOS 26. Now, when it comes to customization, we did get light tinted apps and a new font option, but I gotta be honest, Apple really was low effort on this because Apple, why can't we resize the font of all the other fonts? Why haven't you added new fonts? Why can't we move the clock on our lock screen? Like, come on, Apple, come on. You can't just add one new font that's resizable and call it quits and leave all the other fonts in the dust. And while I do like the light tinted mode app, how come it just makes the background that color and then the actual like icon within the app is white? Can we at least switch that around or, make like a two-tone? Come on, Apple. And you know what? While you're at it, why don't you just get rid of that horrid grid and just have it where we can move apps freely? Yes, that was something with iOS 18, but it was weird because they kept the old grid. So when you're trying to move apps, it will still auto-rotate everything. Just get rid of that, okay? Or at least give us an option. Just give us an option. On or off. You know what? Leave it on by default, but at least give us an option buried down in some sub-menu in settings that we can turn it off. So yeah, overall, the design of iOS 26 is actually really amazing, and I do really like it, and I do really think it brings the OS into more of a modern style while adding some flair to it. Next up is functionality. I feel like this aspect of iOS 26 was overlooked because the design was the biggest player of iOS 26, and honestly, functionality, it was kind of disappointing to me after using it for a while. Because on paper, iOS and all the OSs actually got like a good amount of new features. I mean, we got new Apple Intelligence features like visual intelligence on your screen, live translation, call screening, better input for microphones and other things like that, along with polls and messages, backgrounds and messages. The iPad got the huge windowing mode overhaul available on all of the iPads that support it. And Mac got like a totally revamped Spotlight search. But the thing is for me, after 5 months of use, there's only a few of those features that I genuinely use or feel like I need. I love the call screening feature because a while ago I used to get like 4 scam calls a day. I think someone got my number. Thankfully that has stopped now, but that was a clutch thing. I loved that. I like messages screening. I do really like the windowing mode on iPad. I don't use it much, even though I have a powerful iPad now that even my old iPad support, but it does definitely come in handy. And then on Mac, I really just like the better continuity because frankly, I almost never use Spotlight Search on the Mac, which is interesting because I use Spotlight Search on my phone all the time, but I just really don't use it on my Mac. But honestly, most of the Apple Intelligence features that were new, I don't use. Like, I was expecting I would be using the new Visual Intelligence Circle to Search ripoff all of the time, but I honestly rarely use it. I mean, so I will sometimes use it to summarize something or something like that, but honestly, not often, and I feel like that is a feature that I don't need. Like, if it didn't have it, I'd be fine with it. Maybe if it was implemented better, but honestly, I still don't use it very much. And there were some functionality changes I didn't like, especially on Mac. When it comes to the Launchpad situation, they got rid of the Launchpad, which I hated because I loved the Launchpad. I mean, I even got a third-party app that recreates the Launchpad for my Mac because I did not like that. I also didn't like some of the design changes on Mac, which I should have talked about in design, but you know what? I'm talking about it now. So overall, there definitely is like several features that I love and feel like I can't live without, like call screening, and I love the windowing mode and other things like that. But then there's just a ton of other things that I've like basically never used. Like, I basically never use Mixmoji. I do sometimes use Genmoji, but I basically never use Mixmoji. So honestly, I do feel like the functionality aspect of OS 26 is kind of a letdown. I wish there was more useful features, and I'm hoping that will kind of be what 27 is. I'll talk about that at the end of the video. But I just feel like Apple was so focused on the design that they kind of left out on it, and I feel like it was kind of rushed, which we'll talk about in the reliability section coming up next. So overall, there are some genuinely features like call screening. That is something I feel like I cannot live without now. I just recently got my number, and if I was on 18, that would be literally horrific. Call screening is something that I genuinely need because even if it does ping you, you can have Siri talk back to them. It's just so amazing. Also, I do really like the background and messages, but the only problem is if you're in a group chat, people will just change it all the time, and I go through that because my friends are crazy. They need mental help. So do I, but I mean, I think they maybe need more mental help than I do. You know? Maybe not. I don't know. So overall, in my day-to-day life, the functionality of iOS 26 is okay. But like I said, I feel like most of the day-to-day features that I rely on were in iOS 18 or something like that. But again, there are some very crucial features that iOS introduced that I feel like I can't live without. Alright, it is now time to talk about the worst part of iOS 26, and that is reliability. Reliability is key, and I feel like it's something that Apple is known for. But let me tell you, iOS 26 and the whole OS 26 family have been nothing but bugs, glitches, unreliable. I mean, let me tell you, iOS 26 is the most buggy and unclean, whatever the world, public OS release that I have ever used from Apple. And the thing is that there is still major bugs that I still experience to this day, even on iOS 26.3. And Apple's had 5 months to fix these, but like for instance, let's say you took a landscape video and you want to watch it back in landscape. Well, too bad, because you're only going to get to see it in the top left corner in this tiny little thing, and half the video is not even on the screen. Or let's say you want to restart your iPad. Well, apparently my iPad's side hobby is now rearranging my whole home screen after I restart it. And I also did have another issue, which may have actually not been iOS 26, which was a bug where it was saying that my texts were not delivered when I was texting my arch nemesis Android user. I was just kidding, by the way, about that. He's my friend. He's not my arch nemesis. I'm not like that. I just had to make that joke, okay? Either way, I'd text him, it would say delivered, and then it would say not delivered. And then he would actually get the text, even though it said not delivered. But it turns out that had something to do with an RCS certificate. So I basically had to turn RCS off. He had to turn RCS off. And it wasn't just iOS, so I really can't count that. Originally, I thought it was iOS 26, but it really wasn't. And those two examples were just a sampling of some of the bugs I've experienced. Those are just the two main bugs that I still experience to this day. And there's been many more I've experienced. But honestly, the overall user experience in my day-to-day life is that it's just really buggy. Now, I wouldn't say it's unbearable. It's definitely less buggy than other OSs out there, and I don't experience these bugs every day. And for the most part, after 5 months, iOS 26 has gotten a lot more stable, but there's still those bugs that are still plaguing me to this day. And let me tell you, at first, when it first came out, it definitely was extremely buggy, and the beta versions were honestly unbearable in some ways. But I am glad that it is finally stabilized. It's just, there's still bugs, and Apple, even on 18 and 17 and 16 and 15 and so on, there's always been bugs, but I at least feel like it's been more prominent to me with 26, which is really annoying. And when it comes to the reliability of performance, honestly, I have actually not really noticed performance drops or battery life drops. My phone does not have the best battery life anymore. It has almost 700 cycles, and it struggles to last me a day. I usually have to charge it twice a day now, but I haven't really noticed a huge drop so far. Now, when I first installed the beta on my old iPad, I definitely noticed a drop, but I feel like that is one of the good things, because that was one of my major concerns with all this glass running. What would the performance be like? But thankfully, that hasn't seemed to be an issue. So overall, just thinking about reliability, I don't think there'd be a case where something major fails or glitches out, but there's definitely going to be some major annoyances, like when you restart your iPad, your home screen's rearranged, and you have to deal with that grid. But it's definitely not the best, and I really do think Apple needs to work on that. So the overall consensus on iOS 26 is that it is a good and not so good operating system. Like, on one hand, it has a honestly amazing design. It has honestly some really amazing features. Not much, but some really amazing ones like call screening. But then when it comes to reliability, it's definitely not the best reliability. But honestly, I do feel like you don't have to skip out on it because you're afraid of that. I know a lot of people haven't updated because they're afraid of that, or they're afraid of liquid glass, but unless you have a really old phone, I think you'll be fine. Or a really old device, I think you'll be fine. And honestly, I am glad I updated. I was actually considering not updating my macOS just because of a few of the design changes. Do I still like them? No. But I'm glad I updated. And overall, I do feel like iOS 26 gets a bit too much flack. Like, I feel like it is underrated. I think people do hate on it a bit too much. Not to say that there's definitely some hating points in it, but overall, I think it should be more adopted. There definitely is some concerns. There definitely isn't the most reliable, but I really think unless you're working for this big enterprise, you really shouldn't have to wait. But that doesn't mean that there is still some lackluster things that I am hoping for iOS 27. And while we're talking about iOS, I figured I would give my wish list for iOS 27. First of all, I want Apple to keep the design. Nothing new when it comes to that, and just work on reliability for 27, polish up iOS 26, and then add some new functionality. First of all, a proper clipboard. Get rid of that grid. Give us more fonts. Give us all resizable on all of that. Improve performance, improve reliability, and just make it overall solid OS. And judging by the new Siri 2.0 getting delayed because they haven't had enough time to work on it, I mean, I expected it to get delayed. I have a feeling that the new Siri will be a big part of 27. And if it works great, that will be amazing. And I'm really interested to see how they will market it, but that's a whole conversation for a different video. So anyways, you guys, that is my 5-month later review on iOS 26. Honestly, it does feel, the design feels refreshing 5 months later, but it definitely has its flaws. Anyways, guys, if you like content like this, please consider subscribing, and I will see y'all in the next one.